Terrorism was something like the Lockerbie bombing. Terrorism was something like an IRA bomb in a pub in Birmingham. Terrorism was, a shooting in Northern Ireland. Now, terrorism is putting stickers on a lamppost. Now, terrorism is having the wrong book on your bookshelf or having a document on your computer. But I'm hoping for reform to have not vetted their candidates particularly well. So you do have a number of more right-leaning, more racially aware individuals get elected who want to talk about issues such as demography, as we've seen with Rupert Lowe. So I'm actually quite excited about the elections tomorrow, and I hope it is another nail in the coffin of the two-party system.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, the system needs to go away. And, if nothing else, we're realize, I mean, you realize how big the stakes were, 20 years ago, right? Now everyone is like fully kind of like the way it's seeing all the stats, we're seeing like, oh, the reality of becoming a minority is going to be in the 2060s. Now it's like 2050s. And I even ran this through AI. If someone like Polanski was to go in, it would be the 2040s would become a minority. But, and with all of that, the narrative is changing so quick, right? And so I kind of wanted to ask you, what we are seeing is simultaneously all of the Western world is becoming more nationalist. We have people like Patriot Front in the US and Thomas Sowell in Australia. And obviously one of the things that he's kind of famous for is he was doing these marches of 200, 300 people strong, holding banners like "White Man Fight Back." And obviously for the UK, that is a very extreme kind of position. But like people don't quite understand just how much there is a bias towards kind of the natives peoples. So I guess I wanted to ask, hypothetically, if a group was to do the exact same thing in the UK, what do you think would happen?
I think in the current climate we're living in, if you had a group sort of marching down the street at night, clad from head to toe in black, with balaclavas or face masks, I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't immediately detained under some kind of terror legislation. I believe that Britain is becoming more and more draconian, and the disturbing thing about the way British laws are changing is that it's actually terror legislation that is being routinely used to cover other offences. So, terrorism is the use or threat of the use of violence. So that's the important thing. Terrorism is the use of violence or threat thereof to bring about social, political, or religious change. Okay? And the key is violence or the threat of violence. And that's what it always was. So when I was brought up, terrorism was something like the Lockerbie bombing. Terrorism was something like an IRA bomb in a pub in Birmingham. Terrorism was, a shooting in Northern Ireland. Now, terrorism is putting stickers on a lamppost. Now, terrorism is having the wrong book on your bookshelf or having a document on your computer. And that is very, very worrying. But what's more worrying is terrorism isn't just having the book on your bookshelf. So there are certain books that you can buy in Waterstones, or you could buy in WH Smith, or you could order off Amazon today. And if you have the right political beliefs, having, and I say right in terms of the system's view, not my view.
Socially accepted. Well,
yeah, if you have the socially acceptable, system-approved views, having that book on your bookshelf is absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with it. But having that same book on your bookshelf, if you hold the wrong views, is a terror offence. Now, that is very interesting because you're not just widening terror legislation, but you are turning terror legislation into something that essentially vets individuals on their political leanings, and that is what is increasingly used as the metric which decides who is a terrorist and who is not. So, for example, if you have a young, genderqueer LGBT activist, and he, she, they, whatever they call themselves, has got this book on their bookshelf, that is absolutely 100% fine. It's academic. They pose no threat to society, even though they might pose a threat to society. But if you're somebody who has talked about the problems of demographic change, you've railed against mass immigration, you may have talked about the influence of Zionists within British political institutions and over the government, and you have that book, you are a dangerous threat to the system. You need to, at the very least, have a visit from Prevent, when at worst, you need counter-terror officers storming your house at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. in order to drag you into the street and cart you off. And if people think I'm being, or people think I'm engaging in some kind of hyperbole over this, I'm not. You have to remember that Sam Melia was arrested for putting up stickers by counter-terror police. He was dragged to a police station, and when he first met his solicitor had his head in his hands and was like, I've never dealt with somebody like you. I've never dealt with somebody as dangerous as you. What on earth have you done? This case is like above what I'm comfortable dealing with. But I've got to deal with it because I'm the duty solicitor. So they went into the room, the police got out their evidence, and the solicitor was like, well, where's the evidence for this guy? And they're like, police like, this is it. And they're like, he's like, but you're counter-terror. This is counter-terror. And he's like, right, time out. I need to speak to my client. And he's like, so is this all about these stickers? And he's like, yeah. He's like, but you were dragged out of the post office with your arms behind your back by counter-terror police as your house was being simultaneously raided because they'd been following you and stalking you so they could do this special raid where you left the house, they grabbed you, they went in, they roughed up your wife, they went through, your underwear drawer, and it's stickers. And it dawned on this guy that this was madness. And this is how things are going. Unfortunately, we are moving into an era where it will be your opinions or your perceived opinions that get you onto a watch list. And that watch list will essentially brand you a terrorist. So when they do come for you, you're dealt with far more harshly than murderers or people who have committed horrible acts against women and children. And this is something that you would have seen in the old Soviet Union, in the old Soviet bloc, where if you held views which were perceived to be dangerous to the state and to the state narrative and to the prevailing ideology, which at the time was obviously Marxist communism, you were a greater threat to public safety than actual real criminals. And unfortunately, that affects us at every level. So to go back to your actual question, how could you do something like this in Britain? Well, you couldn't. I think if people started doing what the NSN had done in Australia, in Britain, they would be arrested under counter-terror legislation. They would be raided, their house, maybe remanded in custody for having the wrong book. The group that they formed would likely be outlawed. Anybody then, and remember, you are now a terrorist if you voice support for any group that was banned. And in the wake of the stabbings in Golders Green, they now want to make it a terror offence, or at least some kind of offence. And this is unreal. To be standing next to people at demonstrations who are saying things that could be a terror offence. You don't have to say them, but for you to not disagree with what those people are saying and to continue standing with them. So there was I did a full expose of this the other night on Rumble, okay? And this was on the BBC website, and you've had powerful individuals saying, if you go to a demonstration, it is not enough for you not to be saying words or phrases that could be illegal. You must do something to counteract that or leave the demonstration, because to simply be there and to show your support, your continued support for that demonstration, you're in some way complicit.
Wow.
So now they're trying to widen all this to some kind of, associative crime. So you can be stood next to somebody who says something, and the police say, look, we're arresting him, but we're also arresting you because you didn't distance yourself from him at the time when he was saying this. And this sounds like something out of some crazy dystopian sci-fi movie or novel, but this is where we are going. And the real kind of canary in the coal mine over this issue has been people like Sam Melia, but also the people who were arrested and fast-tracked through criminal trials in the wake of the Southport massacre. And those people genuinely were political prisoners, people jailed for up to 2 years for shouting at police officers, for shouting at police dogs, for one guy for kicking a police van. Now, look, I'm not suggesting anyone should go and kick a police van. It's a pretty stupid thing to do, but getting over a year in jail for kicking a police van seems grossly disproportionate, considering there are Labour Party councillors who have computers filled with the most grotesque and unlawful images of children. And I'm trying to put this in a way, by the way, to not get your channel demonetized. I'm not, there's certain words you can't use on YouTube now to describe these people, amazingly. But there are people like that, Labour councillors, that walk out of court with suspended sentences for being child abusers. Yet there are people who kicked a police van at a demonstration and they go to jail and spend, for sometimes, multi-month or even multi-year sentences. It's absolutely insane. And the silver lining to this rather awful cloud, though, is it tells you just how much the system fears these ideas. And just how much the system fears words. If the system didn't fear these words and these ideas, they wouldn't be passing these draconian laws. And I suppose that doesn't help you very much if you're sat in a jail cell, but it does tell you that the system is losing faith in its ability to continue on in its current form.
No, it's very true. It's very true. And to be honest, I think even these conversations, the conversations that you regularly have, Mark, and I don't want to shy away from this, because if we don't face this now, we are going to literally live in that kind of world. This is why I have these conversations on my channel. And with AI as well, like if the wrong person was in power, everything you've done is going to be tracked and traced. They'll be easy to pull up, right? There's no question about it. So and I don't say this to make myself seem like a hero or anything. No, I say this because we're screwed either way. So it's one of them things people have to quickly get behind to really kind of push back on this. I have a quick video I wanted to show, just to kind of show the clear bias. Where are we?
Charity, this country belongs to us. So yes, we will defeat them at the ballot box, but when necessary, we fight them in the streets as well.
Tash Sultana, as we briefly spoke about. But yeah, this is just another clear example. If you have the right, the politically, socially accepted stance, you can literally call to arms people. Hello guys, this is important, so make sure you don't skip this. Firstly, if you found value, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. But more importantly, often I hear on social media everyone highlighting what all of the issues are. in society, but very little do I actually hear people giving solutions. And I don't like that. I don't like it when people can only show the bad and give people no utter hope for the future. If you've been watching this content and it has resonated with you, please make sure that you join the locals. This is where I'm building a real community with like-minded individuals, where we'll be doing live streams, Q&As, exclusive videos, and a chance for you guys to put your questions to some of the biggest people in this space. Because collectively, we can actually have solutions, and collectively, we can solve the problems which are going on in the West. I'll leave all the links down below. Make sure you leave your email too. I have a goal of getting 500 members before starting, and I'll be sure to keep everyone updated on the way. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next week. All the best.